What's up, guys? Blake here. Welcome back to another episode of the Raw Food Lifestyle Podcast. I have another amazing guest for you today. We have Alain Pineault. He is a pro athlete. He is a professional volleyball player based out of Canada. He is also a coach, a spiritual seeker, and he's down for anything to improve his health, especially fasting. He's done a lot of fasting. And so without further ado, Alain, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm on day 10 of a juice fast, and it's all thanks to you. And I want to tell you guys, first and foremost, that Blake speaks the truth, and the myths about mucoid plaque are unfounded. Yesterday, I passed a strain of mucoid plaque like 1.5 feet long.
That is incredible. Okay, so just to give you guys a little bit of context, and then Alan, I want you to go into, like what prompted you to go on the juice fast, and your journey has just been so incredible because, you guys, he goes by tell the audience, Truthful Living.
Yeah.
Truthful Living on YouTube and on Instagram. And so in addition to being this pro athlete and traveling the world, he's also really into helping people get the most out of life spiritually and then also health-wise and physically. And we met on Instagram and we had a nice video call, and he was telling me that he was going into a juice fast, and we just kind of chatted about it. But I'm just super impressed, brother. You started buying the produce right away. I mean, you got a juicer, you got a couple supplements, and I was just like, this guy is serious. And
Dude, you inspired me.
Dude, I mean, I'm just so happy you wanted to come on the show. So yeah, man, I'm dying to know, like, what prompted you to hit me up and ask some of those questions that you asked? What led into this juice fast, and how has it been going for you, man?
Man, I saw your interview with Jerome Shaw where you talk about passing mucoid plaque. I've always kind of wondered about my gut, and I've been interested in fasting for health reasons, but I always found that water fasting was so challenging that I couldn't bring myself to do it for a long enough time where I could still function and be okay with talking to people and being in the world. And so I just was like, man, I got to hit this guy up. And you were generous enough to give me a consultation and just talk to me about it and inspire me. And even like you said, you were like, the first time I did a juice fast, I just jumped right in. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do.
Let's go, man. Let's go.
And before we change the topic too, I just want to show, okay, viewer discretion is advised. Okay. If I show a brief photo of what I passed, and then
Dude, go for it.
Yeah. And you can skip through if you're icky about it, but I just want everyone to know that this is inside your body. If you eat processed food or cooked food, that this is inside your body. This came out of me yesterday, and this was only a third of it. This is like a third of it.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah. This is day 9. Only on day 9 of a juice fast, I'm passing this stuff. It's probably been in me since the first time I had chicken nuggets when I was 8 years old.
Exactly. And let me ask you this, because when you saw that reel with Jerome that you're talking about, and I've made some other content kind of similar with some other people, and it seems like kind of a hot topic, because people want to feel better and they want to get this stuff out of their body. But then there's another camp of people that seems to think that it either doesn't exist and it's like a myth, or that it's the supplements you're taking. So just to set the record straight, were you able to get the psyllium husk and the bentonite clay yet?
Yeah, I was able to. I started taking that on day 5.
Okay.
And it's day 10 now. And I did do an enema to release that, but it was the first time I did an enema, and it was just clean. It was basically clean water plus that. So that's how I know it wasn't crap.
Exactly.
And then you bring up an interesting point about there's 2 camps, does it exist? Does it not exist? There's the experiencers, the believers, and then the skeptics. And I think this is a deeper topic because it's like that with cold plunges. It's like that with diet. It's like that with fitness, exercise fads. It's like you have to try it for yourself. There will be a medical doctor, an exercise scientist on one side saying cold plunges are amazing. They're great for your adrenals, recovery, or whatever. And then the other half, just as qualified, will say that it's bad. It's like, how do you know? You need to use the discernment. You need to go in and experience it for yourself.
Dude, 100%. And I'm just so happy that you and I are on the same wavelength with that. And you and I, we've always used ourselves as the test. We've always, from what I know about you and what I've learned about you, that we're in the same sort of mindset that, rather than trusting what other people say, give it a try for yourself and see how it goes for you. Now, before we started the show and we were chit chatting just a little bit, when did I talk to you the first time? It was maybe about 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so now today is day 10 of your juice fast. So you got started like right after we spoke. So, I mean, that's just like, that is huge in my book that you took the bull by the horns and you got started. But I can already see a difference in your energy. Your skin is so like smooth and glowing, dude. It looks like you might have lost a little like water weight or something like
For
that.
sure, for sure.
And you guys, he is a legit, like, he is a pro volleyball, he's a professional athlete. So tell the audience, just for I guess for reference, like, you want to share your height, share your stats, your age, and then like how has that changed and how have you felt throughout even just this first only 10 days of your juice fast? Because I see an amazing transformation already.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I'll give a little bit of backstory. So I worked as a personal trainer back in 2021, and I've always kind of been like skinny growing up. But I had sort of a belief system break where I was like, I realized that I could actually put on muscle. And I had a phase where I would eat more than I ever have, lifted 6 times a week, all optimal. And I hit 200 pounds for the first time in my life. And that was like a huge phase and moment and arc where I was getting into building my physique. But your physical appearance is like it's like barely even a symptom. It's only a symptom of your internal state and your practices. And I found that at that time I was not healthy on the inside. And this is kind of like the undoing of that. And so even though I'm skinnier than I've ever been, I'm like dropping below 170. And I was already thin, but I'm 6'6", and so I'm very, very thin now. And I don't tie up my identity as much anymore into my body, my physical appearance, as long as I know that I'm in line with my values and what I'm trying to achieve. And I always try to keep the long term in mind because my intuition was that I wasn't absorbing the nutrients from the food. And that was the cause that I wasn't able to put on muscle. And so it's almost like you got to take a dip before you go back up. And that is what honestly I've been telling myself as I'm losing the weight, as I'm getting skinnier. But and with that said, I've never felt better. Like it's like truly it goes up and down, but the highs are so high and it's not from drugs, it's just from clarity and pure peace and prayer and just being present and just feeling clean because there's nothing more peaceful than feeling like you're clean.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to just highlight what you said right there, because you just dropped some extreme wisdom. You talked about thinking long term and how you might have to take a bit of a dip now to fix the underlying root cause of wherever you're at with your health situation. And then so that you can rebuild back again. So you felt like you had some absorption problems in your digestion, and that's super common. That pretty much everybody has some sort of digestive upset. And it's, why do you think that is? Why do you think that that's such a widespread problem?
Oh man, that's a good question. Think this is something that's just coming up for me to say. I never really thought of it this way before, but just the way that you asked, it's like the gut is almost like the intuitive part of you and it's almost like your center. It's almost like your yin understanding. And we're so yang and we're so logical. We're so reason based. It's like we're science based exercise lifters who I'm eating 1 gram of protein a day, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight a day. I'm eating 200 grams of protein a day, but it's like, where's that protein coming from? What information is that protein carrying? It's like your body needs to be able to read the nutrient to absorb it, to integrate it, or else you're just going to shit it out or it's going to stick to your colon. And so I think it's sort of like an analogy of like, because we're so disconnected from our intuition and we're so like logic and reason based and so like cognitive based these days, because we're in such large groups, we're connected to technology, we're so disconnected from nature that like the gut almost is like the gut disharmony is a reflection of that, where the gut is sort of being left behind or neglected or almost like abused in service of our like concepts.
I love that answer, man, because you answered in more of like a philosophical, like Eastern tradition way. And I find that super interesting. I'm a yoga instructor and I love talking about the yin and the yang, the different energies. And so, man, I love that answer. And I see that you have some Eastern sort of philosophical stuff behind you. I see like a
Yes.
statue and dude, I love it.
I got the boys. I got the boys.
Nice. Tell us, oh, you got Jesus and Buddha, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Dude, tell us about that because when I was looking at Truthful Living, I was looking at your website. I saw a different side of you, man. And I love that. I love that intuitive and that spiritual side. How did you get into spirituality? You've developed that quite a far ways as well. How has that journey been for you?
I honestly just feel like purely blessed that it found me because I was in a dark place and that's always how it happens. And I'll also say that I don't consider myself to be an advanced spiritual seeker, but I am just always trying to trust the process of as I'm developing as a person because I feel like it finds you. I feel like grace is free. It always just it'll scoop you up and I found that even last night I was contemplating because the ups and downs are are more volatile when you're fasting. So the ups are like, oh, I feel so ecstatic and peaceful and perfect and beautiful. And then the downs are like, holy crap, like I'm not feeling optimistic right now. And I had this realization that the impetus to change is the pain. And so the pain is also grace. And so the whole purpose of the pain is to send you back. And so the service, which is what we're all longing for, which will all give us happiness, is like it's like you get drawn to it. You get forced into it. If your calling is to be a just to coach people and you're a lazy piece of you know what, then you're gonna be broke until it forces you to do it. It's like the being broke, the pain of being broke will make you serve people because that's the only way to truly gain wealth is by serving others. You can't gain wealth by doing wage work. It's just you need to create something so valuable that people will be like, "Please take my money, like help me. Like I will give you my money and you help me." And that is if you have something truly special to share, then it's literally your duty to do so. And when you get money in exchange for it, that's just a symptom. And so it's almost like the call, what you're meant to do is being pushed by the pain from below, and then the grace will pull you up. And so that occurred with me in terms of dealing with like drug addiction and the pain of just like depression and stuff and forcing you. And it's not easy sailing. It's like it hurts. And in the time, it's like, I don't know what to do. And the pain has to be so great that you're willing to give up your old life and attachments. And not to sound too like go live in a cave, but internally, it's like the attachments that are holding you back. And that's the purpose of truthful living for me is like sharing because it's not Alain's living, you know? It's not like Alain's cool page. It's like my goal for it is to be sort of like a community type thing where we can just be interested in just the truth. Because the truth, like the old saying, like truth will set you free, and the truth in and of itself will set you free. And so living in the truth, not that I'm saying that I'm perfect, but living in the truth is the only way to be happy. And so truthful living for me is just my humble like attempt or offering to the world of being like this is what I'm doing to improve my health and hopefully I can inspire others and share what I've learned and I feel like that is a goal for you as well is to share what you've been doing that helped you so much. I feel like that's the reason you do it.
Yeah, man, that was beautiful, Elaine, and thank you so much for sharing that side of yourself. As somebody who's like a 6'6" pro athlete, you're a handsome guy, you're super talented, and it's to show that that more esoteric side and that more spiritual side of yourself. I think that takes courage. And to your point about how grace is shining down upon us all the time, and whether or not there's enough pain to realize we need to drop our old ways, that was a beautiful way to illustrate that point. It's very similar to kind of like this little philosophy that I had, which is you have two choices. You have permanent suffering or you have temporary pain. And most people, unfortunately, they decide that they want to stay in permanent suffering because they are too afraid to embrace temporary pain. But on the other side of the temporary pain is where now you're out of the permanent suffering, and now you're on your path. You're giving your gift. You're giving your service. And I couldn't agree more that being of service to others and sharing your unique gift with the world is one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. As a former personal trainer and yoga instructor, I felt this calling inside of me that there's something more, and to keep seeking and to keep searching. And then eventually led me to, this fasting and raw foods and things like that. And I feel like now I've kind of found a home base. I found a niche that I can really sink my claws in and sink my teeth into and just really like nerd out extremely on this stuff and put that content out there and help people. So when did you first start with fasting? I know fasting is a huge part of the spiritual path, and I know you've done a lot of fasting. So share with us when you first started fasting, what kind of fast that you've done. I find that so fascinating. You have a lot of experience with fasting.
Fascinating.
It is, man.
I started with 1 meal a day.
Okay,
That was the thing.
cool.
Actually, my older brother, pulled me up and he was like, "I'm trying this thing. Like, I'm gonna see." It's just a funny, cool thing because we never even tried it before. It was like 2019 or something, 2019, 18, and they were like, him and our best friend were like, they're like, "This is a crazy challenge. Like 1 meal a day." Like that was the thing. Like you can only eat in 1 hour. You got to shove it in, and then you're done. And I remember I'm having flashbacks, so funny you asked me about the first day I'm walking through the grocery store, like 4 PM, no dinner, first time in my life, no dinner. I'm like, "How do you do this?" And it was like I felt like a junkie on, like, withdrawing.
Yeah, for sure. The food addiction runs deep. And so you started with one meal a day, and that was like 2018, 2019. And I know you've
Yeah.
done some other fasting as well since then.
Yes, yes. I've done a few days here and there. I've done a 3 day, I've done a 4 day, and then the longest I've just done water fasting is 5. And then I've relatively very recently gotten into dry fasting.
Okay, cool. So, all right, what in your opinion has been the differences? Because you touched on this in the beginning of the show. Water fasting, it's a little bit tough to go and do your normal life. At least from what I understand in the beginning, I've
Yeah.
only done a little bit of water fasting. And yeah, I kind of just chilled at my apartment. I have a remote job, and I would go on walks and do a little bit of yoga. But yeah, if I was still doing my personal training stuff, or if I had like a sports practice like you probably did, like that would be pretty tough water fasting. So I'm sure juice fasting is going great for you. But
So
I mean,
good.
the fact that you have done dry fasting and you can give the audience like a compare and contrast with that, like is that a lot more intense to do a dry fast?
My understanding is pretty limited, but,
Mm,
the water is also a source of nutrition for cells, and so if you cut out water, it can make the fasting effects, like, 2 to 3 times more potent, or that's what I've heard,
gotcha.
and I
And did
didn't
it
kind of
feel more?
experience that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you did. Cool. And then now that you've added juice fasting into your repertoire, like how does that feel in comparison to the water fasting and the dry fasting?
It is way better. It's way better. It's way easier. It still feels like fasting when you're not drinking juice, and it's very time consuming to juice. It's a lot. It costs money. The cool thing about water fasting, it's free. So, and dry fasting too. But overall, it's way more sustainable. I feel like I can actually pass and like detox. I think the juice is actually helping me detox as opposed to just water. It might be stagnating and stuff. And then also the detox symptoms aren't so, like, severe. They're not so like, because I remember like being on day 3 and 4 of water fasting. I'm working at like I'm building pools, and I'm like, man, I think I might die on this. I might die, right? I might die today. But yeah, I never felt like
Nice.
that with the juice.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, like, do you have any plans on how long you want to take this juice fast?
Yeah, I was inspired by you to do 3 weeks, and so but I'm reading more, it's like I'm waiting for synchronicity to tell me, and I like to not think about breaking it. I say 21, and then I'm gonna go until my intuition tells me if I feel like I need to start eating juicy fruits in, like, week 3 to start to ramp down, because there's also the ramp down process, right? So ramping back, and I wanna, like, integrate what all the progress I've made into my regular life, as opposed to, like, killing myself until 3 weeks and counting the seconds, and then at day 21, just, like, binging on whatever, and so I might, like, start to make an exit in week 3 by starting to eat actual whole fruits, and so that I can integrate it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, you touched on a huge point right there. You know, how you break a fast is super important, and you don't want to negate any of the results that you worked so hard for, spent the money on, spent the time on. And so, breaking the fast and integrating with juicy fruits, that's huge. That's what all the fasting experts are going to recommend. That's what I recommend. And, you know, there's a deeper side to the integration as well, because the fasting is not, you know, and I know you're agreeing with me. The fasting is not just a physical cleaning of the tissues. That's a big part of it. But it's also the way that I felt, at least, is on the other side of every single fast I've done, I've become an entirely different new version of myself. And it's probably just a more true, a more clear version of who I actually am after removing some of those physical toxins. But it's definitely a spiritual sort of metamorphosis, if you will. And that's one of the things I love about fasting. And so, do you have any thoughts on how your life might look differently after this fast? Either from like a spiritual standpoint, or even just something as basic as like things that you might eliminate out of your diet moving forward.
Hmm. I'll just infer that my diet will improve, but one thing is, funnily enough, cursing and swearing is something I'm gonna remove from my, like, outward diet.
I
Yeah,
love
that's
that.
I because and I'll even speak on, like, because you're trying to ask, like, the effects and, like, the takeaways, and, I'm way more sensitive to my feelings. I'm way more sensitive to my body sensations. I know when something feels right or wrong. I'm way more sensitive to animals. I'm way more sensitive to nature. And this is something that's hard to describe, but it's like because it's has to do with awareness or just like attention, which is hard to put your finger on because anywhere you're pointing, it's like this is the attention. So wherever you point, can't point at itself. And so that's kind of what I'm speaking about. But the consciousness is so clear that when I smell something, I really smell it. Or like when I feel bad, I feel terrible. I feel terrible, and I save myself from swearing. Not that it really matters, but just for me, like I said, like the energy, because before it's like I don't really care if people swear. If I swore, I barely noticed. And now it comes out, I'm like, ooh, like that feels weird. And it's not from a place of judgment, it's just a place of intuition. It's just like, oh, it just feels a little bit like off um to curse. And so that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest takeaway that I've experienced actually is my sensitivity to everything, other people, so much more sensitive to other people, way more. It's just like increased clarity. And I just want to re extend a thank you to you personally because I literally feel like this set my life on a new like trajectory of being like, oh my God, like wow, everything is so I've had some seriously crazy beautiful moments. Especially with just doing like healing group and being so clear and people like even you said, not that and I appreciate the compliments and stuff, but even people are being like, wow, that was so loving or something like that. Like people that think things that people usually don't say, they're like, oh my God, like what you said was so loving. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And so I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I accept that, and thank you so much to you as well. Like as in real time, as we're having this conversation, you're inspiring me huge. You know, one of the things that you said was swearing, and I think I have a book right here if I can find it. I won't try to dig through it. I have like my library right in front of me, but most of us have heard of the Four Agreements book,
Yeah, I've
and
read it.
where they talk about, you know, the power of the word. You know, if you can control what you say, then you can pretty much control anything. Crazily enough, if you can control what comes into your mouth via fasting, then you can control what comes out of your mouth that much better. And so fasting is just, you know, like Elaine was saying, you guys, it's like it's so much more than just a physical cleansing. It's a spiritual cleansing as well, but you can't separate the two because there's energies that are going to be attached to that old matter that are keeping your vibration low. If you're operating out of some of the lower vibrational desires, whether it's for power, money, you know, sex, violence, greed, lust, wrath, like the seven deadly sins, these are all in like the lower chakras. And I wanted to share something with you that came up when you were talking about it didn't feel good when you noticed yourself swearing or when you heard some other people swearing. I'm starting to be more aware of things like that as well on my journey. And what I've noticed and what I've been researching is that the more clean that we get our body, you know, in Eastern philosophies, they would say that we have more chi at our disposal flowing through our
Hmm.
body. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, this is a double edged sword because if we haven't done the work on different parts of ourselves, especially in our mind, then that extra energy can get sucked up by an overactive mind and having too many thoughts. And then that can start to go even crazier. And I've noticed that with myself, and I've been really trying to develop my meditation practices and keep a silent mind as much as possible, no racing thoughts. When I feel myself going off into different thought trains and, you know, thought trails, I try to just bring it back to nothingness if at all possible. And the other day there was somebody who I perceived, this might not even be reality, but it was my perception, somebody who kind of threw me under the bus a little bit, and I really didn't like the feeling of that. And I had a thought that, you know, like they're going to get their karma for doing that. And it was like an anger thought directed towards them. And that just felt gross to me. You know, that just felt really, really bad. And I immediately felt, you know, sorry for even having that thought. So for the audience who are listening, and if you guys are on the same sort of wavelength, just imagine if you can control what you say and so that all your words are loving, like the compliment that you got, that you said something that was loving and that was a good feeling compliment, or that you can control even your thoughts to where you're only having positive, constructive, optimistic thoughts, then let me put this back on you. Like, what do you think, how do you think that your life would transform, like in the material plane, if you start to get all these energetic practices to a higher degree of mastery?
That's such a good question, man. I'll speak from my experience and then I can speak from things that other people, wise people have said. And I love that the topic is shifting to like consciousness and meditation because that is the root of the issues because it's never physical. The physical is only ever the symptom. And so that's such, you put it really perfectly where it's like the physical is just like coming out or manifesting from what you hold in your mind and stuff. And I want to share a really beautiful analogy of something that kind of changed my perspective about just life in general. When we have the body doesn't really experience itself. And so I'll explain it. I'll explain it because funnily enough, we don't learn the truth from what's true. We learn it from like repetition. I always try to tell myself almost like a mantra of like, I'm not the body because we learn from repetition. And the question would be like, who am I? Or what am I doing? Or like, what is life? You know, like the classic. And we always hear, you know, that your spirit and stuff, but what does that mean? And because 99.9% of us identify with the body, identify with the form. And I'll put myself in that category because we are very conditioned by the material existence. And we say we don't believe we're a body, but we act like we are. We act like we're afraid the body will die and stuff. But an interesting sort of meditation or thought system to, maybe not thought system, but just something to ponder, is that the body has no capacity to experience itself. The body is being experienced through mind. So the body on, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Hawkins, Dr. David Hawkins, or his scale of consciousness or map of consciousness. Are you familiar?
Yeah, slightly familiar.
Yeah, I would love to share more and maybe even after the show, but I can share more because I've been looking at his work. His work saved my life. And I actually have quite a few of his books here. If I were to recommend one of two, this is the one with all of his stuff. This is like the Atlas, the book of slides. And then the beginner's guide is letting go. Have you heard of letting go?
I know about the consciousness thing, and I want to hear more about that. I'm not familiar with letting go, but tell us more about that as well, because I feel the more that I was more on the spiritual journey in my yoga practicing years, and then I got a little bit more into the physical side of things again, and then now my journey is returning to the spiritual side. So this is like perfect timing for me.
I would love to share with you because you are like, your audience is an extension of you as in a way. And so if I can not necessarily show you, but sort of share what I have learned and I know, because I feel extremely blessed to be familiar with Hawkins' work, and it honestly saved my life. And so without further ado, we can talk about letting go because that is the best book ever written, in my opinion. It's like, and this is going to be blasphemy for Christians because I consider myself a Christian, but it's up there with like the Bible for me. And so in terms of the who am I, we tend to think of ourselves as a body. So I'll say it in two different ways. The body is being experienced through mind. And so the mind is, let's say, the body is 200 on Hawkins' scale of consciousness is neutral, same as the earth. The body is dirt, like dust to dust. And the mind is like, let's say it's 400, uh, but it's a logarithmic scale. So it's not twice as powerful, it's billions of times more powerful. And so the mind actually is not only influencing and downstream influencing the physical matter of the body, which is ultimately consciousness. It's like a spoiler, but it's consciousness and the mind is affecting it. And so this is so um, this is so provable in people who have multiple personality disorder. They have two different minds in one body. And so when the mind of one person is like allergic or they have diabetes, but then the other person doesn't have diabetes. And this has been proven even in hypnotism and stuff where the mind, and it shows the effect of belief systems. And so I really like how you were saying about how the thoughts affect your body and how the physical holds the energy of the mind. Um so what do we do with this? Well, the mind, and this is kind of like the kicker, it's like, okay, mind over matter. That's literally true. It's billions of times more powerful. But the mind has no capacity to experience itself. So thoughts don't experience their own thoughtness. Feelings don't experience their own feelingness. A memory, where is a memory being experienced? It's being experienced in consciousness. And consciousness is the screen or the context upon which the mind is active. And so this is a useful meditation tool because simply hearing this actually will instantly transform your experience because the observer, the witness, the consciousness, the noticer becomes the forefront of your attention. And the noticer, the observer, is always present. That is its nature, is presence. Another word for it is presence. And so presence in and of itself is the essence of who you are. And this is the good news that Jesus said is like eternal life because presence is infinite. It's never no beginning and no end. And so it's one with God and it's coming from God. And that's truly who you are. And so on this screen of consciousness, you could imagine as like an electromagnetic field upon which, or a movie screen, upon which the mind, in order to have an experience, to learn, to experience its own beauty, has to separate itself, and so that's why we have a mind. The mind functions in a somewhat linear way where you can actually observe things happening, or two different things, or a me versus a you, so that we can experience each other's love. And just noticing that, and the mind is sort of reading the body, and the consciousness is sort of reading the mind, but it's coming downstream. And so God, or the creator, or whatever word, 'cause people like to use different words, but the source, it's flowing down into consciousness. You could say individual consciousness, or the soul, and the mind is active within the soul, but the soul is not moving. The soul is the context. And then the body is actually functioning autonomously under sort of the supervision or belief systems of the mind. And so when we ask how to cure an illness that's appearing as symptoms on the physical level, like cancer, we can never just address the physical, because the physical is all coming from mind. It's almost like the physical body is being mapped by the etheric body, or the mental, or the soul, or the, you could imagine like your physical body, like this meat is, how is it organizing itself? How is it pumping the blood? How is it breathing the lungs, or using the brain? It's mapped by the energetic level. And the source of the illness is the energetic level, because everything that is coming in downstream. And so if we can get as close as we can to the root, which is consciousness. And the beautiful thing, this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll let you comment, because I really want to hear your thoughts on this. But the if we address the root of the consciousness, where the illness is coming from, that in some cases will heal it immediately. And so I have personally witnessed in healing groups with people that just bringing to awareness the root cause of an illness, it's almost always related to guilt. Guilt is present in all negative emotion. Everyone experiences subconscious guilt. When And they're layers stacked on top of each other. So I remember you said, like, I have a thought. I have an angry thought, like, I want to take revenge on this person. This person did me wrong. And then you're like, I almost felt bad for having that thought. Well, there's the guilt. And they stack on top of each other, because you're actually angry that you're guilty, and then and you're guilty, but now you're afraid of punishment from this sort of more primitive thought of God, thinking you're going to get punished, or you're thinking of the crucifixion and stuff, or like, I'm going to get punished for my sins. And all of that darkness is sort of like a source of is all the source of the suffering. And so it'll manifest as physical illness. And so when we have physical illness, it's like we can't just address the physical. We need just the mental, the belief systems. What am I believing? What am I thinking about disease? There are no diseases. They're all in you. They're all coming in you. They come from you. There's no disease going out in the air. It's all happening within us, within consciousness. And so the mental belief systems will literally program your body into being sick. That's how powerful the mind is. It's billions of times stronger than the body. And the consciousness, and it could be collective consciousness. We don't always know why we have these illnesses. It's just in the air. Like, there's just fear in the air during COVID. It's like there's just worry that's going on. And so that's the value of doing meditation, or clearance, or the way Hawkins puts it, is just letting go, is letting it come up, letting it come into consciousness without judgment, and letting it be there with love, and knowing that, like, I remember you saying, like, the temporary pain or the permanent suffering. The temporary pain is facing your emotions, letting them come up and to be experienced, because they only have a limited amount of time that they come and go. The anger comes and it goes. But if you push it down, you resist it, it stays. But if you just have, like, if it comes up, you're like, I'm angry, and it's okay. I don't have to feel guilty. And it comes, and that's like an emotionally regulated child. Like, an emotionally regulated child doesn't push down his emotions. If he's afraid, I'll say, Mom, I'm scared. It's like, it's okay, and just let it be there. If you want something, be like, you don't need to stifle it down. And so a really useful practice to even just be aware of, or just knowing, because this saved my life, is just being like, it's okay to experience negative emotion, because pushing it down is the permanent suffering. The permanent suffering is being in a cycle where you're 20 years into a hole of hate and all you do every time you feel hate, you drink. And it's like now you're just digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And now it's like you can't even let that hate come up because you are like, if you let that anger, that rage come up, you're going to kill somebody. And so that's the point we never want to reach. And so as soon as you can, immediately, it's like, as soon as you hear about this, it's like, okay, I need to start letting go. My recommendation is read the book Letting Go, because Hawkins will explain it a lot better than I can. But all I can do is just have pure intentions and do my best to be like, this is what I've experienced. And this is at least what I know how I can deal with the problems and the suffering in life.
Wow, man. You just dropped some extreme wisdom right there. That was beautiful. That was beautifully said. And I'm going to have to go back and watch that again. Obviously, I edit these podcasts, so it's always a delight when I go back through and I, edit the transcript and everything like that. And so I'm looking forward to that process already for that segment and the rest of the show as well thus far. And you had asked you wanted to hear my feedback on that.
I would.
And what I felt like I wanted to share with you is, what started me on this whole journey of fitness and wellness, coming from a family where there was no athletes. We were just kind of like blue collar worker type of family, is that I gained all this weight. And then there was a moment where I experienced such pain, and the pain was enough to cause me to say, nope, not going to live like that anymore. I'm going to make this change. And at that particular moment, I started changing my diet. I started exercising, and I lost around 100 pounds. And this is at the age of 15. And so I've kept that weight off for 23 years. And so when people have, throughout my life, whether it was I was working in corporate America and they see that I'm bringing my meal prepped containers, or, my personal training clients are looking on my Instagram story and they're like, how do you eat chicken and rice and broccoli every single day? This was before I was plant-based, obviously. And I'm like, it's delicious. I love it. It's that, why would I eat something that makes me have to gain weight and not feel good and everything like that? But towards the end of my personal training career and the yoga career, and I told you I was starting to get very into the spiritual philosophies and the Eastern philosophies. I started to think back to that moment where I was feeling that depth of despair, that rock bottom sort of pain that spurred 100-pound weight loss in somebody who was only 15 years old. It flipped a switch in my mind that has never unflipped for 23 years. I mean, that's remarkable. I'm not like trying to say I'm cool. I'm just saying, like, looking at my case study from, an outside perspective, like,
Because
that's
you're a
crazy.
personal trainer, you can treat yourself as like someone.
Exactly. I'll treat myself as like, like a case study or whatever. And I'm just looking at that. I'm like, I wanted to recreate that same sort of experience in my clients so that they would never, have that problem of yo-yoing or backsliding or anything like that. So they could make the permanent change that I made. But I started to think that there was something deeper going on than just pain. And so that's what led into looking at things that are similar to what you just talked about with letting go. And there's a book called The Placebo Effect by Joe Dispenza. And
Yeah,
these
I know Joe
people,
Dispenza.
yeah. And, these people, they have spontaneous healing because they're in a situation where the environment is kind of playing along, the doctors are playing along, giving them these fake pills or giving them these fake anesthetics, and they go under surgery and don't feel anything because everyone's kind of
Yeah,
playing the part. Everyone's kind of, um setting the stage, if you will. So the person just believes it, but you can't deny that they didn't get healed, and you can't deny that they didn't experience like somebody slicing into them because they were just having no pain at all. And this is study after study after study after study, case study after case study of these people who experience the placebo effect. And that's just one small example of the power of belief over your body. You said that the belief is logarithmically powers more strong than the physical. So my question for you, and this is where kind of I was at a couple years ago, and then I kind of let this train of thought go for a while, and I pursued other things on my journey, but it seems like this is coming back into play now because I've been studying more Eastern philosophies again, and the fact that you just brought up again right now, I feel like the universe is telling me to dive deeper into the subject matter. My question for you is, at what point in time, let's make this relevant to us. You know, we want to do this fasting. We want to clean our body. We want to get rid of the mucoid plaque. We want to get rid of the toxicity in our bodies. At what point in time, at what level does your mind, the power of your mind, have to be to where it negates and you can just eat cheeseburgers if you want and live to be 120? Or you could just, go to the Asian buffet like every single day, twice a day, but then
Yeah.
like you have no mucoid plaque, you have nothing, you're just so pristine. And there's this example that Brian Mirabella gives where he talks about Yogananda,
Yeah.
who wrote the autobiography of yoga.
I've read it. I read it multiple times.
It's an amazing book, and
It
when
is. It is.
Yogananda passed away in California, that his body didn't even decay. And Yogananda was kind of thick. I'm sure he was probably eating curries and eating
He
his,
liked eating. He
stuff
liked
that he
eating.
liked to eat from his home country of India and whatever. You
Fasting
would
was his
imagine that
hardest
somebody.
thing. He
Oh
hated
yeah.
fasting.
Oh yeah, and you would imagine that he would have tons of mucoid plaque. Am I wrong? So it's like, but at the end of his life, he passes away, and his body just stays in this pristine state and doesn't decay because he had the mind over matter thing that you're talking about. So, what's your take on that? Like the power of the mind versus the power of the body. Is it important for us to not put all of our eggs in one basket and develop just the meditation side or just the physical side? Is it important for us to do both? Should we do this fasting and cleaning our body as a gateway to more power over our mind? What's your take on that? And what would be your strategy if you were to advise someone to balance those two worlds, the mind and the body?
Oh my god, it's such a great question, man. You got a knack for that too. I like how you're giving your own, and then you're also coming up with these banger questions. Like it's awesome. That's sick. And it's very good, great talent. Okay, I know you said keep it relevant to us, but I'm gonna start with let's just become aware of what's possible because God is infinite, and so the potential is infinite. And so when you read a book like Autobiography of a Yogi, you start to realize that the impossible is possible and that depending on who you read or who you believe, because ultimately it's like you got to see it to believe it. Some people, but some people, it's like if I trust you enough, then you can tell me something and I'll believe you. It's like, do I believe that Jesus came back from the dead? Like, yes, I believe that he did the impossible, and I believe other saints have done the impossible as well. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. Name any superpower. Sure, is technically possible, and I believe it. And I've seen the healing superpower in person. And so let's start there. Let's start that we have infinite potential. And so at any moment, there is the capacity for us to ascend to that level of consciousness for a period of time. And so keeping the door open, like my practical advice is keeping the door open. Don't deny. Don't be closed off to the idea that miracles can occur. Like, for example, if I'm going to recommend any two resources, the only resources I'll recommend are Letting Go by Dr. Hawkins and A Course in Miracles. Are you familiar with A Course in Miracles?
Yes, sir. But tell us more about it.
It's it's designed to assist you to raise your level of consciousness, basically, and replace the perception, replace your illusions, or there's lots of words like Maya or like suffering and stuff with essence, truth. Anyways, it's a beautiful book. If it calls to you, then pick it up. There's a 365 lessons. But in terms of so there's like a text, which is really cool, and then the lesson for each day. And so in terms of just to answer your question for practical, because I want to give your listeners practical advice. I know we're coming up on an hour. And so I want to summarize my thoughts very quickly. At any point, grace can come down and scoop you up and take you to heaven. And so just be open. And in terms of how do we connect like the mind, the mental to the physical, and how do we balance out belief systems and like being practical is like use your intuition. Like you can spontaneous healing can occur and it may not. And this is the experience with all healing is when the mind is healed, whether the body heals or not is irrelevant. And so, like you said with Yogananda or something, it's like when they pass away, oftentimes when a yogi reaches that extremely high level of consciousness where they disidentify with the body, then they simply stop breathing and their body just peels over and dies and they literally do not care. It's completely irrelevant because they actually realize that they are not the body. And this has been experienced in near death experience where you leave the body, you see your body, you're like, wow, that's my body. What am I? I'm spirit. I'm consciousness. And then you come back and then you're like back in the world or people are talking to you, your body as if it's you. You think it's funny, but you don't know how to explain it. So it's like, what context am I going to explain? Like, you think that this thing is me? It's like, no, I am the living, breathing soul, one with the earth. Like, but saying that feels like an ego because the ego is attached to the body. And so the true spiritual people will not say something like that. They'll just sort of like pretend or like they'll have compassion enough for you that you think that I'm a body. So I'm also going to pretend like I'm a body so it makes you feel better. That didn't fully answer the question of practical applications. If you want to wrap up because we're coming up on an hour, that's okay. But I'll give you a chance to interject.
No, brother, finish your thought, man.
Okay. Practically speaking, you're always doing your best. Wherever you are is great. You're on your journey for a reason. You are where you are for a reason. You have the experience and pain that you have for a reason. And it's like faith through the dark night of the soul. Like we will always go through ups and downs. This is what's necessary to press us up. The nature of human existence, material existence, is to give us an opportunity to make choices and to improve and to transcend. And there would be no karma. There would be no karmic merit in living if we were all angels. It's like if nobody hated you and you didn't have to forgive them, then where's the merit? And so the whole purpose is like returning to God, loving God, because ultimately God is one with who you are. And wherever you are is because ultimately, on some level, high enough up the chain, you want to be here. And so the realization is just simply a decision. It's like, do I want to continue experience this? No. So it's like radical responsibility of our negative conditions. It's like it sounds crazy, but it's like I have cancer because a part of me wants cancer. So now I have to act, and it's like self-punishing because here's the secret that no one will tell you that you got to read the whole book to get, but I'll tell you the secret. The negativity has its own allure. It has its own attractiveness. It has its temptation. This is why Satan is like, this is why Lucifer is so like sexy, is because you want it. It's like a temptation. It's like permanent suffering, but temporary pleasure. Or guys like temporary pain, but permanent happiness. And so there is an attractiveness to anger. There is an attractiveness to desire. I want to want. I want to want you, and I want you to want me. That's Lucifer. That's like, well, the terms for the devil are ambiguous, but like the lust is like, I want you and you want me. And then the love is like, I love myself and you love yourself and we honor each other. And so on the outside, it's the same. You could be making love or you could be having sex. And on the outside, it looks the same. The inner experience is very different. And so the negativity has a payoff. The payoffs of negativity can include being right, feeling sorry for yourself, garnering pity and attention from others, and playing the victim. If you're the victim, you have no responsibility because it's not your fault and everyone's out to get you. And so you can sit in that. And that is very attractive. And it is beautiful. And it is grace. And it is the human experience. It's the human condition. And so you can have compassion for that part of yourself that just wants to be held, that's like hurt. And so it's almost like a child inside you. And so you can think of God as, in a way, a divine parent, even though it's not really like a parent, but it is kind of, or like a grandparent. Or it's like they're always watching you, they're always with you, and they're taking care of you. And this little part of you, the perfect part of you is one with them. And then the imperfect part of you are just a shadow because it doesn't really exist. It's just an illusion. You kind of made it up yourself. That's kind of the point of the Course in Miracles, actually, is realizing that the negativity is only like relatively real. It's more like a shadow where you perceive it, but it's not fully real. But that shadow, that darkness, that urge, that death urge, that urge to lay in bed and to be depressed, and the apathy is so like it sucks you in because it's so tempting and it feels so good for the ego, the separate self. The ego actually depends, its own existence is clawing and screaming, dependent on your allegiance to negative emotion. And so some people see saints and are like, wow, this person is so saintly and holy. It's like, no, the saints and holy people suffer the most. They go through the most pain. Jesus was crucified. He did nothing wrong. Like St. Francis was sick his whole life and died at like 35 of like 10 different conditions. Same with Hawkins. And it's like the pain is grace. The pain is coming up. The pain is so excruciating. It's like Jesus sweat blood in the Garden of Gethsemane. Um, this is, and the Buddha, when he was under the tree, he was attacked by, he said he felt attacked by demons and that his bones were breaking. And this is something that happens as you ascend a level of consciousness. And not that I'm saying that I have, but just what I've heard is that the pain is so excruciating that it will force you to let go. And you must let go because it's your soul's destiny to return to the source.
Elaine, like mic drop right there, brother. We need to have you back for a sequel. You know, if you're
Let's
down,
do
if
it.
you're willing, as I go through and edit this one, there's already some topics that I want to just be like, yo, riff on this for like 20 minutes because these messages that you're sharing with us, they're so impactful. And you know, just that letting go, the reconvening with the source, you know, realizing that you know, there's an allure to the negativity. There's an allure to that safety, that false sense of security that the ego wants just to make sure that our physical body isn't perishing. That's the idea of the ego or the purpose of the ego. But having a greater faith than that, having that faith in the creator that we will be safe and taken care of no matter what. And then going from a place of courage, operating from a place of abundance and allowing. You know, I recently had a guest named Seth on my show, and one of the words that he liked to use was allowing and not having any resistance. You know,
Mhm.
if you want to have a cheeseburger and you're claiming to be a vegan, just allow that to come to fruition. And maybe you needed to learn a lesson from that, that it feels
Mm.
really bad in your stomach and you're never going to do it again or something like that. Or maybe I needed to have a couple relapses on coffee before I kicked caffeine. You know what I'm saying? But to bring it home to when you first started on the show today, you were talking a lot about discernment and knowing when that you're in that state of allowance and knowing when it's the ego that is maybe trying to trick you into a false state of that temporary pleasure that's keeping you in perpetual suffering.
Hard to
So
tell.
it's hard to tell. And you've done a lot of work. The Course in Miracles, the Letting Go, autobiography of a yogi. I see a whole bookshelf behind you. So I want to pick your brain more. Meanwhile, I know that you share Truthful Living on Instagram and YouTube. I'll have those links in the show note below. Elaine, where else can they find you or how else can they get in touch with you?
You can message me on Instagram.
All right, brother. All
And
right, cool.
thank you so much. I know you're going to thank me, but I thank you because it's so awesome. And I love that you're doing this.
Dude, yes, absolutely. You're so welcome, Elaine. And thank you so much. And I can't wait to have you back for round two, man. And so you guys stick around, keep checking back and check out Elaine's pages. His YouTube is awesome. It's got more content, just like we talked about today. Deep, intellectual, spiritual conversation, but with an athletic perspective as well, which I think that, you know, is you still need to balance those both two worlds. At least that's my current philosophy. So
Absolutely.
we're spot on. We are simpatico there. And thank you guys so much for hanging around. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And until next time, we will talk soon. Peace.
Peace.